What's up, everyone? I'm Nathan Graham Davis, and I'm going to re-break in as a Hollywood screenwriter. If you didn't catch the last episode and you're wondering what I meant by re-break in, feel free to check it out. But here's the deal. Screenwriting is like the NFL of writing. There are millions of people who want to do it and only a few thousand who manage to in any professional capacity. There are even fewer who actually manage to make it their full-time gig and keep their WGA memberships current. Actually, it's about the same number of people as play in the NFL in any given year. Taking that analogy a little further, I'm like a guy who was called up for a couple games, was benched the entire time, and then decided to walk away and do something else entirely. Well, hindsight's 2020, and because it's 2020, I've decided that I want back in and I want to take it to the next level. So, you don't get to the WGA or the NFL or the elite acronym of your choosing without a lot of discipline, commitment, and resilience. Someone who has embodied that his entire career as a screenwriter and an actor and now an author is Bob Saenz, who has a new book out called That's Not the Way It Works, a no-nonsense guide to the craft and business of screenwriting. He's got over a dozen produced credits, and he's sometimes the co-writer of Jeff Willis, who you met last week. Like Jeff, I met Bob online some 10 to 15 years ago on the IMDb screenwriting boards. He was actually the first professional writer that I ever spoke to, and because of that, I thought it would be super cool to bring him in early on in this journey as I'm getting back into this game.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
All right. Look at that. You've got like a whole booth set up there, huh? You've been doing a lot of Zooms?
Oh, I've been doing tons of Zooms. It isn't just that. It's just I've been doing all kinds of podcasts and stuff, and just
Awesome.
the book's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like it's picked up steam. It doesn't surprise me, though. It's really good. I mean, I've read a lot of screenwriting books at this point over the years, and, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
So I feel like I knew this about you, but I read it again, and it surprised me again, was that you sold your first script.
No, it was an absolute friggin' miracle the way it happened. I was working on Nash Bridges. I had written an episode of Nash Bridges, and being the naive jerk, the fool, because even though I worked on the show, I thought, oh, I'll just give them a script and they'll love it and they'll want to use it. I didn't realize about all WGA and writers' rooms and all that stuff, and they were really nice about it. I mean, Carlton Cuse said, we have a writer's room. And at the time, people like Damon Lindelof were in it, and Sean Ryan was in it, and there were all kinds of great
little names there.
And he said, but I'll read it. And I went, okay, thanks. And he did, and he came back to me and he said, you can write. You're good. We can't use a script, and we're not going to, but keep writing. And so I decided I would write this script that I heard my 10-year-old son say, mishear something on the radio, and I thought it sounded funny and thought it would be a good title for a movie, and decided to write the movie. Gave it to a friend of mine who was a casting agent. And she said, if you're writing, I'd like to read something you've written, just because I'd like to. And she put it on her desk, and she was dating a guy from LA who worked at Warner Brothers. And she was in the middle of a casting session or something, and he picked it up off her desk, and the rest is history.
So, I mean, that's not normal. Part of what makes it not normal is not just the fact that the dots connected, but also, I mean, most people's first scripts are just not very good. I mean, I doubt you remember the particular one because it's been so long, but you read my first script 15 years ago, and I will never show that to anybody. And I haven't shown it to anybody for, probably 12 of those 15 years. And I think that's the case for most of us. So, what do you think it was that kind of gave you that edge so early on in your writing career?
Didn't care. I didn't know what the rules were. I hadn't read any screenwriting books. All I knew was the scripts I'd read on the sets I'd been on, and that I'd always been kind of a good storyteller. So I just looked at the scripts and how it did, and I figured how they would say the things and how it would look cinematically, and I just wrote it. I didn't care about arcs or inciting incidents, or I didn't know about any of that stuff. And I just wrote a story, and they love the story. I can't, I mean, it's just, it's that script right now is in play again.
Still,
I mean, I've rewritten it. I've rewritten it a bunch of times since then, but not that much. And there's people looking at it now.
So did you rewrite it at all just to kind of, because obviously I would assume that you think you're a better writer now than.
Oh, absolutely. But the story is the same.
Right.
I've just spiffed up the dialogue and worked out some of the things that I wanted to. And I literally rewrite every single one of my scripts every year.
Do you really?
Yes. I take,
Wow.
I'll tell you why. I mean, I don't rewrite them. I just do a pass through them.
Sure.
And I do a tech update and a cultural update on all my scripts.
That makes it
so that every single script, every single year of mine looks brand new, rather than, and none of them look like they've aged.
I like that. I'm actually, that's cool. You know, because I've got this script, Aftermath, that I optioned 6-7 years ago.
That's the bridge one.
What, the bridge one? Yeah. Did you read that?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. Well, so it's dated now, right? I haven't updated it for that long, or for that 6 or 7 years.
Well,
and
stuff gets dated in a year.
Yeah, right. And
Yourself.
technology
Tech.
and a couple other things. You know, just there's a mention of Josh Beckett, the Red Sox player, right? I mean, things like that that just I know need to get ironed out, and you know, it probably wouldn't take me more than 2 hours max, if that. So that's really interesting.
Every year I do that so that when I give a script to somebody, or my agent or my manager gives a script to somebody, it looks like I just wrote it.
Yeah,
and,
it makes a ton of sense.
And you always want to be, you know, the last thing that producers want to look at is something that's old. So if you just are constantly making it new, you don't have that problem.
Cool. All right. Well, that's useful stuff right out of the gate. You mentioned in your book also that it took you 13 years to get produced after selling that first script. So, I mean, that's a massive amount of time to actually get your foot in the door.
It's about normal amount of time.
Right. But I mean, I think for anybody who hasn't experienced that yet, that's probably, you know, a little unnerving if this is something that they want to get into.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, in the book, I'm very, very honest. Whoops, I'm out of focus there. I'm very, very honest about how long it takes and how hard you have to work and how much rejection you're going to have to put up with. It's ungodly. It's terrible. But, you know, it's what everybody has to go through. You know, Eric Heisserer wrote Arrival 10 years before it got made.
Yeah, I mean,
people were calling him an overnight success.
Yeah,
which is,
well, I mean,
which is ridiculous.
How many movies has he written before that? You know, and some of them, you know, were very, you know, kind of they were genre fair sequels, things like that.
They were genre stuff. They were sequel stuff. It was the kind of stuff that it's good to get those jobs.
Oh yeah,
it's not anything that's going to make people grab you and say, "Oh yeah,
here's an Oscar nominee." Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Children of the Corn 6 or whatever it was isn't going to be. And Eric's a great writer. I mean, he's a great
wonderful
writer. Yeah, and it just takes that long. It takes that long, and I wish it didn't. But it does.
Wrote about it being kind of a roller coaster once you break in with, you know, high peaks and low valleys.
It's true.
You know, I definitely, that spoke to me for sure, because I experienced both of those in the short amount of time that I was actually working. And you also mentioned shortly after that, in that same chapter, that usually once somebody gets on that roller coaster, they don't want to get off. And that was a little bit of a gut punch because that's exactly what I did.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be. I mean, they don't want to get off. Sometimes they have to get off. It's
Yep.
family reasons. Sometimes they have to get off because it's driving them crazy. Sometimes they have to get off because they aren't going to succeed. The fact is that when you have 80,000 scripts registered every year with the copyright office, and 800 or so movies that get made, or get a lot more movies get made, but that many get 800 or so actually get distribution. There's a lot of people who are never going to succeed, and it's and most of them are the ones that just give up way too early. That don't do the long hard slog and learn that it's not just throwing words on a page, but it's crafting a script. You're building something, and there's lots of little blocks that you need to do to build it, and to build a real story, and that isn't anything there are people it comes naturally to. They're just natural storytellers, and there are people who have to work hard and learn it and do the heart pounding work that it takes to get it done. A lot of people who just won't do that. I wrote my first script, where's my Oscar?
Sure.
And the reality of that is zero.
Yeah, and I think most of us think that when we get into it, it's kind of that Dunning-Kruger effect, right? You're not aware of what you don't know until you really get into it.
It's true.
I mean, I thought my first script was brilliant until people like you and Jeff and a few others just completely ripped it apart. And I learned a lot, though.
I really feel that that's the reason I wrote the book. I mean, the reason I wrote the book is because I didn't see any books out there that actually explained what the second half of that book explains. What it's like to be in the business of being a screenwriter, not the business of screenwriting, but the business of being an actual screenwriter. What you need to do, the things that happen to you, the things that you need to be prepared for, and the things that you and what pitfalls and what walls and all kinds of things are going to be placed in front of you, and how through perseverance and talent and hard work that you can get through them and or around them or over them, and that's why I really wrote the book.
Well, the truth is that most of the authors of your big screenwriting books, and some of them are actually pretty good, but most of them can't speak with a whole lot of firsthand experience to what it's like to be a screenwriter, because they've probably had close to the amount of success that I've had. They've had an option or two and maybe an assignment, but not a whole lot. And that's really the story for most of those authors. Whereas, you've got a dozen produced credits.
I'm at 16 now.
So so that's quite a bit, right? And plus all the acting experience. So I thought it was really cool.
I've got 2 more movies coming out this fall, and
it's huge.
And I've got a bunch of other projects that are kind of all fluxing around out there that I'm not talking about yet. Until they're reality, until somebody signs a contract and we move forward, I don't tell anybody about it. I used to always, I optioned this, or I did this, or I optioned that, or these people are looking at this, or there's a thing where there's circling, which I always thought was stupid anyway. And I learned a long time ago not to do that anymore, because you just, when they don't happen, and they don't happen like 95% of the time, you just look kind of stupid. And I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's when you're an unproduced writer who's having some success, there's a desire, I think, to speak about it, because, so in my case, it took me 7 years to break in, right? So I've been telling people that I've been getting up at 4 a.m. in order to write before my day job for 7 years or whatever, right? And I have nothing to show for it. So finally, when I break in, there's something to at least speak about. But then things fall through, and then it just
They do.
yeah, it
But
looks.
you know what? I don't blame you. I mean, I did the same thing. I talk about it in the book too, where my ego went out of control after that first accidental option from a studio. I went, oh boy, this is going to be easy. I'm going to be a big-time writer. I'm going to make all this money, and then it was gone. It was gone.
Yeah, I mean, but I can understand why you'd think that if right out of the gate that's where you're headed, right?
Yeah, but
So
I didn't have anybody to, rein me in, but I did later. I had people who I knew that were in the business who took me under their wing and said, "Could you please not be a jerk?" and I listened to them and realized that they were absolutely right, and learned how to switch that ego shit off.
yeah, I think that was part of my issue. One thing I really want to speak to you about is that resiliency that you had and that you developed, because I think that's where I fell kind of short that first time around. I was really only kind of in the game for real for about 2 years before I became so disillusioned by all the false starts and all the bad politics and everything, and I just walked away from it and went and did a graphic novel and then didn't come back until now. It's 6+ years later. How did you develop that resiliency, or is it something that you'd already developed by that time?
I wanted it. I mean, I'd never wanted anything professionally more. I mean, no matter what happens to me professionally, my family's still more important to me than anything else. And if my family, something happened in my family that I needed to never write again, I would never write again. But professionally, nothing was more important to me than doing this. I've been wanting to be involved in making movies or trying to make movies or acting in movies or now writing movies from the time I was like 10 years old. And there was nothing else I wanted, nothing. And I just, I didn't do it for years. Up there's sun coming through the window now. You gotta excuse me. I'm gonna go change. I'm gonna go over shades. So anyway, so that's what I did. I decided to. There we go. I decided to not give up.
So you just kind of always had your eye focused on that prize there. I mean, you never lost sight of the goal, and that carried you through the hard.
No, I mean, there were times when I was just disgusted by being so close and then having it fall apart. Extracurricular was at Universal, and it was going to go, and they were in pre-production, and it was all ready to go, and then Brick came out and tanked. And they said, "Oh, we don't want another high school movie," and that was it. It was gone.
Yeah, that's so.
And I got
that story so many times too.
I got the rights back, and it took another 10, 12 years, and the movie finally got made.
But that was 10, 12 years after it had already been in play for a little while, right? I mean, wasn't Extracurricular?
18 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge amount.
18. That script, from the time I wrote it to the time it got made, was 18 years. But during that 18 years, because, and I think you read it.
Yeah,
during that 18
it was one of the first pro scripts that I read, actually. So
during that 18 years, it opened every door that gave me as much success as I've had. It was like the magic carpet script. If it never had gotten made, I would have been okay, because it made my career. Yeah,
I mean, it's a calling card script, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. It's got you can say the log line very quickly and easily, and you instantly know what the movie is. It's got really solid characterization, and it reads like a bullet, And
I would just tell people it was Heathers meets Ferris Bueller, and they would want to read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun one. It really is.
Did you watch the movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie yet, actually. I read your book, but I haven't seen the movie yet.
It's on Amazon Prime now.
All right, I'm going to have to check it.
It was in the theaters in 2019, May of 2019.
It's
No.
funny, with the kids being the age they're at, even before COVID hit, last couple of years, I haven't been in theaters much at all. Almost everything is catching something on Netflix or Amazon after they're in bed. So,
well, catch this one. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be pretty fun to see it after, reading it.
Yeah, it really exists.
Or whatever. So
it really exists.
That's so exciting, man. Congratulations. Is that because it's taken so long, is that one of your favorite accomplishments at this point, or?
Oh no, I mean every one of them is exciting. Some of them are awful. I mean, I've got a couple of movies my name is on that are really bad. But I didn't write them. Not a word I wrote is on the screen.
You just had
it's the way this industry works.
Sure.
And for one of them was so bad that I said to my manager, I said, "Do you think I should take my name off of it?" And he said, "Don't be an idiot. A credit is a credit, and in 6 months, no one will know. They'll just look on there and say, 'Oh, he wrote another movie. Look at that.'" And it was true. Anyway, the best part of that story is I got a handwritten letter from one of my cousins in LA who told me that was the best movie I'd ever done.
Really? Oh, that's great. Oh, so there you go. So it made somebody happy.
So I'm not gonna, it's just, eye of the beholder.
So, the types of movies that you have out is in terms of your produced credits, it's a pretty broad spectrum, right? I mean, you have credits in varied genres by a pretty big degree.
Yeah.
When you were earlier on in your career, were you strategic at all about the type of writer that you wanted to brand yourself as?
Again, I didn't know about brand. I didn't know about strategic. I didn't know about genres. That you had to stay in a genre. I just thought you could think of a good movie and write it. So that's what I did. I wrote comedies, I wrote thrillers, whatever I thought of at the time and whatever good idea I came up with, it's what I wrote. And nobody's ever said anything. I mean, I've got 2 Christmas movies coming out this year. And I just optioned a horror film.
Really?
And I just wrote another horror film that my agent absolutely is in love with.
I don't think I've ever read a horror by you. I've read, probably 4 of your scripts at this point, but I don't think
I'll send you one of them.
Yeah, send one my way. I'd be really interested to check that out.
But I've written, so now there's an opportunity for me to have a couple of horror films out and then maybe a couple more Christmas movies. I don't care.
And your reps don't seem to care either, huh?
They're just, are you kidding? They don't care. My manager says, just send me whatever you write.
Yeah,
I don't,
movies made.
I don't need permission from my reps about what I'm going to write next. I don't need to go over with them all my log lines so they can choose the one they want me to do next. Because if they did, I would fire them. My reps and I work together. We work together to get my stuff out and to do stuff and to work on things, but I'm always out there trying to sell my own stuff too. And the thing about it is, if I get a deal, I cut them in on it. They do the what they do where the stuff that I don't want to do and or shouldn't do. But I'm not, these guys that have these reps who say, for 2 years they give them log lines and the reps go, no. Everybody is different. Everybody has different expectations. Everybody needs different ways for people to handle them. I'm too old to have some guy tell me, you can't write this when I have what I think is a great idea. And I didn't tell anybody about the horror script I just wrote. I wrote it, and the idea behind it, both of those horror scripts I wrote are completely different than anything that's out there, and I didn't tell anybody before I wrote them what they were about. I just wrote them, and I said, I had my circle of writer friends who all read them and gave me notes and and uh, said, I hate you because you thought of this, and then and then after all that's over, I've gone through 6 rewrites on this, or 6 polished rewrites on this. The main story was always there on this latest one. And last Friday, I called my agent and I said, I have a new script. And he went, really? And I said, yeah, it's a new horror script. He said, we just did this other horror script. It's not the same. Or right now, I said, no, I have a new one and I want you to read it. And he goes, well, I'll read it over the weekend. And he called me Monday and he goes, I've got 6 people I can send this to. And I'm like, okay, do it. But he didn't know a thing about it until it was ready for his eyes, because I don't need somebody telling me what I can and can't write. That's me though. There are other people and there are other writers, and there are other writers out there that are new and they need somebody to hold their hand because their ideas aren't solid. And there are managers and managers out there for them. But there are some of these managers that all want to be producers, so they all want you to write what they can produce, and I'm not into that either.
So, are you intentional at all in the way that you try and develop your ideas, or do you just let them come to you, and then when something really just feels like gold, you run with it?
I have a whiteboard over here, and it's got 2 columns, and it's a big whiteboard, great big whiteboard, and it's got 2 columns of ideas, of premises on it that I've come up with, and just whatever strikes me is the one I decide to write next. I'm right now. I'm not even writing a script. Right now, I've just finished writing a YA novel, and when that's done, I have a Christmas script I need to finish. And then
Is that the one that you're working on with Jeff? He said that you guys had a new project.
No, we have another whole new project that's completely different.
Yeah, that's
and then
awesome.
I have a series idea I have that I really like, that could be weird.
Have you done TV before?
I sold a pilot.
You did? Okay, cool.
Nothing happened with it. I have 3 film scripts, not optioned, but sold, and 1 pilot sold that have never been made yet. And they may never get made, because that happens too. Or they might. But once you sell something, you just have to move it to the side and worry about the next stuff going on, because if they want you to rewrite it, or there's some movement on it, they'll get a hold of you. You don't have to bug them about it. Or if they've hired somebody else to write on it, they've done that too. There's nothing you can do about that either. So I just did a write for hire job where I was the 6th writer hired on this film.
That's quite a few.
Yeah. And when they came to me, I said, I have to throw the entire 3rd act out. And they went, wait, what? And then I explained it to the producer and to one of the other producers. And the one main producer said, nobody ever said that to us before, as far as the story goes. And you're absolutely right. And I said, you got to do it. And that film won an award at a film festival this year for best screenplay.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah. So
was your name in the credits at all, or?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And I don't know where it's going. It's got a distributor and it's got stuff going on with it, and it's fine. And I like the people a lot. I've worked with some really wonderful people. And so, but you just never know. I'll write something and there'll be 6 writers after I've written it as the original writer. That's another thing that a lot of new writers have a huge problem with.
Sure.
in that it's like when you sell a script, it's like selling a car. You know, the guy who bought it from you, you can't tell them they can't paint flames on it. And they always paint flames on it.
Have you ever had a script where you saw it all the way through and you were the only writer on it, or 2 out of 16?
I mean, I know guys that haven't had any in their career.
Yeah.
That I've had 2 is amazing. I've had 2. I've had Extracurricular and the one I just did, the one that just shot in Canada. I was the only writer on the project the entire way through.
That's pretty cool. And then, you know, getting to see that come through and seeing your name in the credits and knowing that every word is yours has to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like it. I mean, professionally, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I can't imagine, but that's certainly the goal, is to finally get to that point and get my name in those credits finally after all these years.
Well, you know, the possibilities there. I mean, there's so many new so many ways to get stuff out now. I mean, there's, you know, look at all the streaming services. I mean,
Sure.
they need content. And the thing about them, though, is they're still looking for content from people who have done it before.
Right.
So if you have a track record, they're going to look at you. If when a project goes to somebody like Netflix, they say about the writer, what have they done before?
Right. So it's still a matter of getting in with the spec game before any of the assignments.
Well, or winning the Nicholl. Well, I have a friend, Robin Rose Singer, who's a friend of mine, and she wrote an incredible script. And after I read it, I said, "Have you entered this in the Nicholl?" And she goes, "No, I'm gonna enter my other script in the Nicholl." And I said, "You're out of your mind. You need to enter this in the Nicholl, and you need to enter it now." And I said, "If I have to give you the money to do it, you better do it." So she entered both scripts in. One of them didn't make the finals. The one that I made her enter is in the finals this year.
That's so awesome.
Made the top 10.
That's huge. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're in the top 10, everybody in town is reading you. So
And well, she deserves it. She's a great writer, and it's an incredible script. And I want, you know, I know a lot of people that are friends or people I know that are really good writers, and I want all of them to succeed. And if I can help them in any way, I do. And you know, I've been very fortunate to have been able to help a couple of people get stuff, you know, really going. But this one for her, it was a no-brainer. I mean, it was going to find an audience anyway.
awesome.
It's just a great script and a great premise and a great everything. And so she's going to be basking in some, you know,
So
pretty cool
what's the name of
sunlight.
her script, since obviously finals were announced anyway? Which script?
Oh, it's The Lion of Mesopotamia, it's called.
All right, cool. I'll have
And
to
it's
write it down.
about the Iraqi soccer team during World Cup, when Saddam Hussein was still in charge, and what they did to the team and how they escaped, and it's just a great movie.
Wow. Okay, that sounds super cool. Good for her, and good for you for recommending that she do that. All right, so
Somebody would have found it anyway. I just, you know, wanted to speed it up.
that's awesome. So if I want to get back on this roller coaster,
Okay.
what's your advice to me after I've been out of the game for 6 years, you know, and pretty much have to start all over again, right?
Okay. Here's what I say to people that want to do this, want to break in. 1, forget about studios. Don't write for studios. Don't think about studios. Don't care about studios. They don't care about you. They are, you know, Disney hasn't bought a spec script in 5 years, right?
Jeff was just talking about this the other day. He said, yeah, it's really funny working for Marvel, which is a Disney's company, because neither of them, you know, they've got so much IP, they don't know what to do with it all. And they have no need to buy anything. So
they haven't bought anything. And they bought Fox. And they told Fox not to buy anything. So now that's 2 down. They're not buying stuff. The studios aren't buying anything. Okay, they're doing IPs. They're doing books that are, you know, Ready Player 2 is getting ready to go into production. it's novels, it's famous novels, it's all kinds of stuff that remakes, reboots, everything's, and so if you write a gigantic budget movie, there's only 6 entities that can buy it, and they're not buying. So what you can do is write a $1 to $5 million budget movie, which 1,000 producers are looking for if they're good. I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, and I can't think of it. Taylor Sheridan wrote the movie. What is it about the bank robbers that Chris Pine was in? I can't even think of the name of it. Hell or High Water was the name of that movie. I just remember.
Yeah.
He wrote it as a $5 million movie because he knew he could get financing and get people to buy it because it was so good. And it ended up being a $10 million movie because you got Chris Pine and you got, well, not just Chris Pine, but you got Jeff Bridges and a bunch of other great people in it. And so it built from there, but the basic framework of that movie was $1 to $5 million. And if you work within that low budget $1 to $5 million, there's a whole chapter in the book about it, about writing to a budget like that. And if you work within that range, there's a lot of people out there looking for really good scripts. There are very few really good scripts. 98% of the here's the story. I read for a big film competition, script competition one time, because a friend of mine called and asked me if I would. And I read for this competition, and we couldn't find, and this was thousands of people, we couldn't find 10 finalists.
Huh. Wow.
Because the scripts were so bad.
Oh, man. That's crazy. So this was one of the major competitions?
No, it was one of the mid-level. It wasn't one of the huge ones.
So you're kind of like Blue Cat, Scriptapaloozas, things like that.
Well, it's within that range. I'm not going to talk about which one.
No, that's fine.
But I'm just saying, we couldn't find 10 finalists.
That's amazing.
The scripts were not good. And there were a couple that were okay, and they ended up doing well. But there is a dearth of good scripts out there. People send stuff all the time that just you read them and you go, wait, what? How did you even, do you watch movies? But it's this whole mentality of they got to be easy to write,
Sure.
They look easy to write. I can just write one. And there's no thought of the craft that goes into really building and writing a good script. So, it's when you see something, when Robin sent me that script and I read it, I flipped because it was just amazing. And it's the kind of script that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up and you go, holy crap, this is good. And I, every year I read 5 scripts a week probably. And I can count on one hand the ones that are really good.
Yeah. Yeah, they are definitely they're diamonds in the rough, no question. It takes a lot to make a good script. Even now, however many scripts I've written, it's easily a 4-draft process for me for it to get where I want it to be, and it's a lot of work, So
I just told you the one I sent to my agent was 6.
Yeah,
it was number 6, and the one that I'm going to send you, that is the one that went out and got optioned, it was my number 5.
How drastically do they change from draft to draft?
Unless I have a major story problem, which I make sure I don't before anybody reads it.
Sure.
I try that there's no plot holes at all. It's character work. It's there are some things that if three people who read it point out the same thing, you go, okay,
there's a problem. Yeah.
there's a problem. So you just, I mean, it just depends. It's different from script to script. It's different from project. You just and you if a note's good or not, or you think about them, and you think about. I just wrote an article for Script Magazine about the different kinds of notes that you can get from people, and what the thought process goes through for the good notes, and the thought process people go through for the bad notes, and it's just a basic of I want to help you write it the way you've written it versus here's the way I would write it.
Right.
And here's the way I would write it are the bad notes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get a note back that tells you exactly how you should write it out, that's usually not going to be a good note.
Or they didn't understand what you were doing.
Yeah.
Because they want to make it this movie. If you put giant spiders in the second act, you could really do something good.
Oh, yeah. Giant spiders are their thing.
It's a Christmas movie. What are you talking? It's the difference in the notes is, and you can tell. I mean, you could tell.
Cool. So I should be aiming for that sub 5 million, and just target.
I would. I mean, to be honest with you, nowadays you can write a pretty watch Extracurricular. We made it for under $5 million.
It's amazing what you can do.
There's lots of effects. There's lots of stuff going on. There's a big high school basketball game scene. There's lots of things in it that we were able to do for under $5 million. And nowadays, special effects are cheaper, and they're going, as we are talking right now, special effects costs are going down.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what you can do. My friend Clint Jones, who's actually going to be the interview for the next episode, he's a great director, but also a incredible VFX artist, and he's doing tutorials right now on his YouTube channel for them. But you might have actually seen one of his videos. It's got something like 100 million views, but basically it's these guys at a firing range with a robot, and the robot, gets a gun and starts firing at it and then turns on them. And it's so realistic looking. And this is something that these guys just do in their living rooms, And
it's gotten to the point where it's really reasonably priced. So
Yeah.
you can do stuff under $5 million that you couldn't do 5 years ago. And you also have to remember that a $5 million movie now was a $15 million movie 15 years ago.
Right.
Because all of the costs that were generated by having to shoot on film are now gone. So there's no more film costs at all. So a $5 million movie is a pretty big movie now. And people don't understand that, because they think that, 5 million is the same 5 million. And it's not, because you don't have all those incredible costs that went along with having to shoot on film.
That's probably something that's even changed, since that time when I optioned Aftermath. I mean,
I'm sure it has.
That was budgeted at, in the 15 to 20 million range, and now I bet you could make it for under 10 easily. So
probably because VFX has gone down, and so has and you shoot everything digital now.
Well, that's great advice. It's not that dissimilar to some of what Jeff was saying, so it's nice to be hearing. It's kind of like you said, when you get the same note a couple times. It's worth taking into account. So that's helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the thing about low budget is low budget used to sound like, oh, you're going to make some movie for American International, or you're going to make some terrible like exploitative movie or something. But now you can make movies like Hell or High Water that are still low budget films, and they're not exploitative, and they're great movies.
Yeah, they're excellent low budget.
And if you So the stigma that goes along with the words low budget isn't there anymore. And a lot of people just can't put their head around the fact that it's not there. And a lot of new writers don't want to put the fact that it's not there because they don't want any limitations put on them when they write. But you can still be super creative and still understand a budget. You know, if you want to write you want to get writing assignments as a writer, you have to understand what costs what. You have to understand budgets. I get a writing job, the first question on my mind, my brain, besides why did you buy this script, so I can know what they want me to work, the things they want me to work on, is what budget do you want me to shoot for? Because if you have a responsibility as the person they hire for the writer to give them what they want within the parameters that they've chosen. I've gotten to the point where I understand budget so well that last year I got a script. My manager got a script from a producer who handed him the script and said, we want Bob to take $1 million out of the budget. We don't want him to touch the story or the dialogue or anything. Just rewrite it to take $1 million out of the budget because we don't have it.
So what did you do to take $1 million out of the budget? Did you reduce character
numbers?
Yep.
Yep. Reduce characters, combined characters, turn night scenes into day scenes, turn moving car scenes into parked car scenes. I took random locations and put them into locations that already existed, so they had less. Every time you have to move all those trucks, it costs a lot of money. So if you can, the more scenes you can shoot in the same place, you save a ton of money. So I did all kinds of stuff like that. They figured I took $960,000 or something out of the script and didn't touch the story.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, they paid me. And it's just, those are the kinds of things that you as a professional writer have to be able to do. It's not just, you get assigned a job and you just write it out. There's so much thought and preparation, and every scene you have to think about all these different things and still make the story the most important thing.
Huge. Well,
not easy, but they wouldn't pay you if it wasn't easy.
No, that's definitely true. So
it was easy.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Bob.
It's good to see you again. It's good to hear from you again.
Likewise.
I'm glad you're writing again. You have the ability to do this, and
I really appreciate that.
And it's just a matter of it's just putting your nose to that grindstone and not giving up, and not letting the stupid stuff that happens to you happen to you. Getting a movie made is a miracle. Any movie. I don't care if it's the worst movie you ever saw. Getting that movie made was a miracle. Getting a good movie made, that's another miracle. So a good movie is a 2-miracle movie, okay? 1 million things have to go right for a movie to get made, but if one thing goes wrong, everything can go south. It's an astounding thing. So don't think that this is, everybody thinks that, you write a script and you get a movie, and it's not the way it works. That's not the way it works.
Honestly, it is great. You're a guy who knows what he's talking about. You've got all the credits and the experience to back it up, and it's a quick and easy read.
It is on sale on Amazon, on Apple, Barnes and Noble. You can get it at almost any small bookstore. If they don't have it, they can order it. Amazon's got it in Kindle, and Barnes and Noble has it for the Nook. And it's available internationally now. And I wanted to write it like a conversation and not like a textbook.
Yeah, I was able to read through it pretty quickly. And, for being somebody who reads and writes a lot, I'm not a fast reader. And it didn't take me a whole lot of time at all. So it was great. Well, hey, I'm ready to get after it. And I really appreciate the kind words and the advice.
Well, and I will send you a copy of the horror movie. And if you ever want to send me something that you're working on, send it.
Will do. I appreciate that. Thanks, Bob. Hope you have a great night. Take care.
Thanks again. See you later.
What do I even say after that? Tons of wisdom packed into there. Bob is a guy who has lived the roller coaster of being a screenwriter, and he's now reaping the rewards because he stayed disciplined and committed the entire time. He's never been one to pull punches, and this was definitely no exception. I really appreciated his advice about writing to budget and how to write to budget. Also, what he had to say about updating my existing scripts so they match with the present time, gold. I'm totally going to do that, probably between rewrites on this next spec. I'm eternally grateful to have mentors like Bob and Jeff in my corner, and I'm a little shocked that they still support me after all these years. Up next is my good friend Clint Jones. He's a super talented director and VFX artist whose work you've probably seen on YouTube channels for Corridor Digital, Rocket Jump, and his own channel at Punisher. Check them out. All right, so action steps for week 2. Like I said, I'm keeping it simple for weeks 1 through 3. Right now, it's all about immersing myself in this world again, catching up on what I need to know, and getting reacquainted with my goals. Number 1, read a script for a movie you've never seen before, and then watch the movie. I just checked out the script and the movie for A Quiet Place, and I loved both. I thought the script was excellent all on its own, and then the decisions they made for the movie were super cinematic. Number 2, listen to a couple screenwriting podcasts. This is easy to do when you're working out, commuting, doing chores, whatever, and it's a great way to continue to immerse yourself in that mindset. Number 3, keep reading that book if you haven't finished it already. You want to be finished within a couple weeks so that you can focus 100% of your energy on the actual writing once you start your script. If you liked the interview with Bob Saenz, which I'm guessing you probably did, his book is absolutely worth checking out, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Number 4, give some thought to the type of brand that you want to have as a screenwriter, if you want to have one at all. I spoke to both Bob and Jeff about this idea over the last couple weeks, and they gave great advice on both sides of that argument. There is a real benefit to being able to wind up on a producer's or executive's list as a writer who can write a certain type of script, but there's also a real benefit to being able to show that you can write lots of types of things. I don't want to be the straight action thriller guy, but also I do have a lot of different interests, and so I think that maybe I can define the type of movie that I want to write, and I'm going to try and do that for next week. All right, so I've got a giveaway for week 2. I'd also like to congratulate the winner of an autographed copy of Malice and Mistletoe signed by myself and by Jack Purcell. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I don't actually have any entries yet. This whole thing is brand new. Week 1's only got a couple hundred views, and I'm actually shooting week 2 a couple days earlier than I'd like, just the way my schedule lined up. So what I'm trying to say is that week 1's challenge is completely open. Go back to episode 1, do the challenge, email me. Your odds are really good. Win a prize. Simple as that. Also, Jack was super cool and signed a whole box of these for me, which means I'll be giving one of these away every single week for the next 6 months. So the week 2 challenge, go online, download a copy of the script for A Quiet Place. I thought it was really cool and really innovative, and it's worth reading. Find out how tall the wind turbine was? Email me at ngd@nathangrahamdavis.com, and I'll pick a winner for that next week, as well as for week 1. Done. Sending out 2 copies of Malice and Mistletoe. Simple as that. That's all I got for week 2, everybody. Thank you so much for checking this out. Be sure to subscribe. I have killer interviews lined up for the next several weeks. Can't wait to talk to all these cool people. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll get back to you. Thanks so much, everybody. Smash cut to black.